Hey guys, it's Pete from Beef Anxiety here. Welcome in today's episode. I appreciate y'all being here so much. Let's talk about a few things real quick. The Pete vs. Anxiety Team Anxiety Facebook group. Are you a part of it? You're not? What are you waiting for? The link's down here in the description down below, or go to Facebook and search Pete vs. Anxiety. Then look for the Team Anxiety Team page and join it today. Why not? You can join and help. It'll be great. Yeah, like right now. Hurry up. Stop what you're doing, pause this video, go do it right now. But anyways, let's also talk about the Pete vs. Anxiety YouTube page. If you're here right now, you're probably following it most likely. If not, head on over there, subscribe, be sure to like and comment on the videos and let me know, because all that stuff really helps, guys. I really appreciate it. And help me break the stigma that mental health is talked about enough. But anyways, guys, let's get in today's episode. I'll have a great one. Thank you so much again. And as I always say, don't ask how your day is. Ask how your mental health is today.
Guys, welcome to an exciting episode of Pete for Anxiety. As you can see, my guest is here with me today. She's not here right this second. I'm going to bring her in just a minute. I do need to issue a trigger warning that today's episode is going to be a very tough conversation. We are going to be discussing sexual assault. So if you are a victim or you know somebody and this may be very triggering to you, I want to give you a heads up that this conversation may be a little rough for you to hear, but it is a conversation we need to hear. But with that being said, my guest today is a 20 years experience of leadership in nonprofit sector. She's also a licensed clinical social worker with deep expertise in the gender-based violence role. She's played a key role in changing the U.S. domestic violence laws. She's also worked on projects around the world, consulted with tech-based companies, tech-based tools like apps for violence prevention and virtual reality. Please welcome in the CEO of Callisto, the one, the only, Tracy Del Thomas.
Di Tomasi.
You're close. There you go. I tried. Anyways, guys, welcome, Tracy. Thank you for being here. I know this conversation is going to be rough for some people, but what you're doing, I think, is amazing. So why don't you tell everybody a little more about yourself?
Yeah, well, like you said, I have been doing this work for over 20 years, so almost 25 years. And I think it's really necessary to have these conversations. And I have found a way to have them, I think, with the least amount of stigma as possible. And so I have run domestic violence shelters. I've worked with adolescent boys for a long time. And I actually started my career as a therapist for adolescent sex offenders.
Yeah.
So with starting my career in that way, I've looked at the issue of domestic violence and sexual assault from a perpetrator lens versus a victim lens, which I think is not always common in this field. And I really believe that preventing and stopping sexual assault relies on perpetrator accountability and also getting men involved in this conversation, especially the good men, and recognizing that there are so many men who are victims as well and survivors as well.
No, I agree. I think that we fellas need to be a part of this conversation as well, because I don't think a lot of us should avoid topics like this. Like, that's why I invited you to come, because I was like, you know what, let's jump in this conversation, because I'm not afraid to have these conversations with you. So it sounds like you've done your research. You have the background on these things. So is that how you got into Callisto?
Yeah, I've been doing this work for a really long time. I've been the CEO of Callisto for 3.5 years now. And one of the reasons that I decided to come aboard was because I actually think it's a solution. In the 20 some years that I've done this work, the numbers haven't changed much. And I think that we have done a lot better as far as victim services goes. And for survivors, we haven't done enough, but we've done a lot of really good things in understanding trauma throughout the years. That conversation has shifted significantly in the time that I've done this work. But what we haven't done is perpetrator accountability. And I feel like Callisto does both. We are an intervention. We are mental health resource for survivors. We are also justice, and we can help pursue justice by connecting survivors of serial perpetrators. And so really looking at my career before this, it was like this, if we can get this out into the world and we can get people to understand that they have access to it, that we will make a significant difference in how people experience sexual violence and the accountability and the prevention of it.
I feel like it'll allow people to take more power of their situation too, because you guys have a great web source of just complete knowledge of things. It's amazing. I was looking through it too, and I was just like, this is really great. You have the toolkits, you have all the different things. You even offer all these things for people, for them to feel more empowered about these things, to say something about it and stop being quiet, and say nothing, because at that point it's just like it gets worse. And then if we don't do anything about this problem, this problem is just going to continue. As you said, it's just getting crazy, because it's just like, hey, there's a problem we need to solve. And I was looking it up too, because I know that college campuses, that's one of the things listed, sexual assaults listed on one of the top things that happen. It's like, okay, these problems are happening. So why are we not fixing these issues?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 90% of sexual assaults on college campuses are committed by serial perpetrators who, on
Yep.
average, offend 6 times just while in college. And so, if by finding two survivors of that same person, and they can report him and they can get some kind of accountability before that person offends all 6 times, we're going to reduce college sexual assault by 59%. Not
Wow.
only that, but we're going to be helping those survivors as well.
59%. Oh my God, that'd be amazing though. I mean, think
Yeah.
about it, because it's just like, that's crazy. No one should ever have to deal with those kind of things. And like you said, there's someone on there that does 6 times. That's insane. Like that, knowing these numbers, why have we not addressed this issue though? I mean, we know it's a problem, clearly it's an issue. Like, we need to do something about this.
There's no economic incentive, period.
God, isn't that horrible to say though? There's no economic incentive to save someone from something that could traumatize them for the rest of their lives.
There should be. I mean, it costs, and I don't know the figure off the top of my head, but it's
Yeah,
something like, 120 some $1,000s per survivor
yeah,
that is affected by this, between physical health costs, mental health costs, all of that, the criminal justice, which most people don't report sexual violence, but it's really expensive. And yet, particularly for universities, if they connect survivors of serial perpetrators, there's going to be a lawsuit, most likely. That's going to cost them money. We have Title IX, which is a law out there um, that requires schools to follow certain procedures if somebody reports being sexually assaulted at school, and
yeah.
that's really to protect the school. It's not to protect the survivor. And so there's so many things where so many people say that we care about survivors and all of this, but you can look in
Right.
the news right now. I mean, Epstein is all over the news right now, and yet we're wondering about this list, yet we're not listening to the survivors who have named people already. And so you
I
can
think you're
see that
right
with the
though.
Me Too movement. How many times Harvey Weinstein was reported prior to actually being held accountable? And he was an open secret at Hollywood. Everybody knew, and everybody just accepted it because they wanted to advance fame. They wanted to, or he had power over them.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about trying to get your own career, but you knew that he was going to blast your career and end it if you spoke out or if you did anything. And I think that's still happening today in any institution where there is a significant power dynamic.
Yeah, yeah, I know. And remember the '90s? What is the Nickelodeon one that came out? They were talking about the guy that did all that, and then the Amanda Bynes thing. All these things are coming out, and people are like, "Oh, well, this is so shocking." It's like, but is it really though? Because it's been like this for a long time. If you think about it, it's been happening for so long. People have been saying things. I think when Cat Williams came out and said something about the whole industry of just people doing weird things, everybody looked at him like he was crazy, but he wasn't wrong. Don't think about it. All these people keep coming out, and he's like, he wasn't wrong when he said these things. He was just the one that was the one that said, just forget it. I'm just going to be honest and start telling you the truth about things.
Yeah. There's people all the time that say, "Why didn't you come forward sooner?"
Yeah, exactly.
A good friend of mine, Jess Michaels, and I would encourage all of your listeners to look her up on Instagram and on TikTok. She is a 1991 survivor of Jeffrey Epstein, and she just recently, last week,
Jesus.
posted a reel about it, and it went fairly viral. And a lot of the comments are, "Why are you coming forward now?" Just because it's the first time you're hearing that person's experience doesn't mean that's the first time they've said it.
I think that's a great point. I think it's an actually amazing point. Is that why are you going to judge somebody when you don't know anything about their situation? Like, I feel like
Exactly.
that happens too much. And when you put things on social media, you're already expecting those kind of comments to come through. Like, well, why didn't you tell anybody sooner? What are you talking about, dude? This has been going on for a long time. Maybe they just now have the power to do it. I mean, people like to give you advice that have never been in these situations, but when you're in that situation, we'll like to see how you handle it. You know what I mean? It's
Hmm.
just like everybody wants to be the boss, but nobody wants to understand that, it's different when you're the victim in the situation.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many dynamics and power dynamics that come from, that prevent people from reporting, that prevent people from doing anything. And,
Yeah.
I mean, the title of your podcast, Pete versus Anxiety. Anxiety changes the way that we respond.
Yeah, exactly.
And trauma causes anxiety as well. And, all of that impacts how survivors react, not only in the moment, But afterwards, where, typically it's called PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, there's a movement to change it, that's called PTSI, which is post-traumatic stress injury, because it is caused by an injury. It is not something that you are internally disordered.
Yeah.
And I think that is really important to think about. How do our bodies respond and fight, flight, freeze, face, fawn,
Yeah.
appease? Like, there's all of these automatic biological responses to trauma that we have, not only in the moment, but also post that incident, and that assault, that can really impact how we think about it, how we feel about it, what we do about it. And if you've never experienced that,
Yeah.
you might not understand that is how you could react.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, that you may not understand because you haven't been in the situation. I feel like a lot of these people that comment things, that's what they do. They're just like, oh, all this great advice. It's just like somebody tells you if you're depressed, oh, cheer up. Yeah, it doesn't work like that, unfortunately. Everybody has a miracle answer, but doesn't understand the situation, and it's really sad. I don't think people realize the impact that trauma has on these guys, when it happens to these guys and gals, and majority of it are women. That's the scariest
Mhm.
part about it. Is majority of the number I'm looking at is insane. Most of it is women. There are some men, okay, but 1 in 5 girls, in fact, and 1 in 20 boys are victims. And it's just insane. It's like we know these numbers, but we don't do anything with these problems. It's like you're allowing all these things to happen, these young children and these other women and things like that, and then they go on and they have all these issues. And then some unfortunately take their lives, because they just can't handle what they had to deal with. And then everybody goes, well, what happened? Why didn't they say something? It's like, it's great for you to offer this sound advice, but until you've been in their shoes and you walked them out in their shoes, don't try and tell them that they're wrong for being powerful to talk about it, and especially putting it on social media, because like that had to be the hardest thing to hit post on that, because the
Mhm.
responses that she was going to get, God knows what you're going to get after that point.
Yeah. For anybody that says, why didn't somebody report? I would instead ask the question, what made it unsafe for them to report?
Yeah.
That's one of the things that Jess says, and I think it's really profound, because if you go on any survivor who has posted their story on social media and look at the comments, and you should be able to discern for yourself why they didn't come forward.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things, and maybe it's a good time for me to talk about Callisto and what our
Yeah,
technology
definitely.
does, because I think that we have built this system in order to get around some of these issues and to help survivors. So our technology is end-to-end encrypted, and so what that means is that everything is stored in the encrypted state. So it gets encrypted prior to it being stored on our servers. Um, and anybody in the US and its territories with a .edu email address has free access to the site. So you can go in and you can create a free account. And what happens is, most survivors that I've talked to over the years have said, I wonder if he did this to anybody else. I wonder if I should have reported. I did report because I was worried about him doing this to somebody else. And so this is an opportunity to be able to find out if your perpetrator has harmed somebody else without having to publicly come forward or to name them on social media or even to police or Title IX or any type of authority. So what a survivor would do after creating an account is they put in the state where the assault occurred. And we do that because sexual assault laws and definitions vary by state. Then the survivor will put in a unique identifier of their perpetrator. So their perpetrator's social media handles, email address, phone numbers, a variety of different things, as many as they know. And that's what we use to match. So if two people put in the same Instagram handle, let's say, there's going to be a match. It's not like a dating site, so they're not going to find out right away. What's going to happen is that we're going to be notified that there's a match. We cannot see the survivor information or the perpetrator information. Again, we don't want that information because we want to make sure that is protected, and we really
Yeah.
take security important. And then we assign that case to a survivor advocate, and that advocate is protected legally under confidentiality, and they get to see the whole entry. Again, only for a match. If nobody matches, it stays in that encrypted state until there's a match. That advocate will then reach out to the survivors separately, and the survivors then have a choice. Do I meet with the advocate or do I not? They can do it either way. That advocate is free for them to meet with. And if they choose to meet with the advocate, then they say what happened to them. That's the first time they have to really say what happened to them, because we know how difficult that can be and re-traumatizing that can be. And then they get their options. Would it be like for a criminal case, a civil case, a Title IX case? What are mental health options? What is this like for you? Just somebody to talk to about it as well. And then after going through all of the risks that may present themselves, the advocate will ask if you want to connect with the other person. And only in the event that everybody consents and signs a consent form will then the advocate connect those survivors to pursue healing and justice, whatever that means for them. So we are not a database that you can sort through. We are not are we dating the same guy groups on Facebook. We are not any of that. We are really about survivor empowerment, because we know, and we don't report to police. We do not report to Title IX. So we are not a reporting tool. What we do is we empower survivors to take the step that makes sense for them. And that might be reporting, and that might not be, depending on what their case is, what the solutions are in their local area, and what they feel comfortable with. Because reporting and going through a criminal process or even a civil process can be excruciating and really re-traumatizing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I think it makes sense though, because you want complete confidentiality. For a lot of them, that's what they want anyways. And then if they decide to go further, that's great. If they don't, then they don't have to. But the fact that an advocate's going to reach out to them to try and help them out, I think is amazing too. So how do you guys select your advocates? Are these people that have I'm sure you guys go through a strict background of exactly what you're looking for, especially when it comes to that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. They have to be trauma informed. We talk to them. They have to have a lot of history working with survivors, and no legal potential issues, and be trauma informed. And so there's a lot that goes into that, with background checks and all of that. But these are folks that have done the work for a long time. And I talk to every one of them individually to make sure that I believe that they are the most trauma informed possible, because again, I've done this work for 25 years. I've heard about survivors and terrible experiences with therapists who claim that they're trauma informed, terrible experiences with lawyers who say that they're trauma informed. And, we also make sure to understand that some of the survivors that are most impacted negatively by the criminal justice systems, and the systems in particular, are people who are from marginalized communities, BIPOC, LGBTQ folks with disabilities, and they trust people even less. So we want to make sure that our advocates not only are trauma informed, but also understand issues through a intersectional lens. And so they know how a survivor who is Black may feel about the justice system compared to somebody else.
Yeah, and it's some of the statistics I've looked up, guys, here too. There's some really, really scary ones. 80% of rape victims know the person who sexually assaulted them. That there alone is just insane. It's like, come on, guys. I mean, and then as for the reporting thing, according to the stats I'm looking at, it's 25 to 40% of sexual assaults are actually reported to the police. Why is that? Do you feel like it's because the power dynamic, like we were talking about earlier, is that they feel like something's holding them back, that they can't? If they do it, they're afraid they're going to get in trouble for saying something?
Well, there's a lot of people that have reported to police and then are convicted of false accusations, even though they weren't false. Like, there's a really
What?
amazing documentary on Netflix called Victim Suspect that I would
Okay.
highly encourage. It's not an easy watch, but it is a very informative watch, of survivors being really credible, where the police didn't even investigate the crime. They just assumed that the person was lying. And I think that happens all the time. And I think it goes back to that stat. I mean, even if you look at the cases that are reported, like 1 in 1,000 perpetrators are held accountable and actually face jail time. So there's not, what I always say, and I've said this for over a decade, people think reporting to the police is like an episode of Law and Order SVU.
Yeah.
It is not. There are not really empathetic detectives who really work on your case day and night. And there's not somebody that's sitting in a room with multiple computers that are able to type in. The databases that connect everything do not exist. And so people think that that's how it works, and that is not how it works. It is a long, long process. You can look at the rape kit backlog where they're doing the rape kits and they're not actually testing them. And if they tested them, then they actually would find more serial perpetrators. So there's a variety of reasons why people don't report, including going back to that statistics about 80% of people know their perpetrator. I think the other thing is that most people, when they hear the word rape, they think of a very violent act by somebody you don't know that's jumping out of the bushes, that's in the parking garage. They don't think about it being a coercive act. They don't think about the months of grooming that may have happened to build trust there. They don't think about it being a clergy member, a trusted coach, a professor, a partner, a best friend, a fraternity brother. They don't think about all of that, which that's a majority of sexual assault. And so particularly with college students, most college students don't even realize they've been sexually assaulted. There's drugs and alcohol involved. And they're like, oh, I got too drunk. Maybe that was the issue. I don't remember what happened. I don't want to say this because I don't want to make my sorority or fraternity look bad. I don't want to say it because if I say it, if I accuse my coach, then I'm going to lose my scholarship, or I'm going to lose my spot on the team, or everybody's going to look at me bad. And that you can hear stories of Sandusky from
Yeah, I was
Penn
going to just say that
State.
Sandusky for sure.
There was the wrestling coach. I'm blanking on his name, from Ohio
Well, there
State.
was the Olympian gymnast one too, wasn't it, as well?
Larry Nasser.
There you go.
Larry Nasser was reported to police and Title IX starting in the late 90s. And and throughout time, he was reported numerous times. And the reason that he got held accountable was because I think it was in 2016, the Indianapolis Star did a story on him. And one of his victims, a survivor named, oh my goodness, I'm blanking on her name at the moment, Rachel Denhollander,
Yeah.
knew that somebody had to come forward first. And she did. And she used her name, and all of the survivors started coming forward. And then not until after he was convicted and until the judge allowed each one of the victims and survivors to say a victim impact statement did even more come forward, because that was when they finally felt safe enough to. And one of the first people that came forward was a 6-year-old girl that was a family friend of his. And her parents didn't believe her and made her apologize to him.
That's
Like,
insane.
because
6
he
years
was
old.
very charismatic and he was very well liked and he
Yeah.
was a good guy. And we put perpetrators into a dichotomy of good and evil. And that is not the case. Most people think we can identify a perpetrator, and most people cannot, because most people are thinking about the guy in the bushes, the really crazy weirdo, the recluse, the guy that isolates, whatever, when really it's the priest, it's the pastor, it's the most charismatic doctor, it's the coach that you would never assume that it would be. It is really, really charismatic people, because that's how they get not only the survivor to trust them, but everybody around them to
Yeah.
trust them.
It's very
Because
narcissistic, though. You think about it, though. They're trying to
it
put on the
is.
image that there's something, a very covert narcissist. If we had to really give it a classified one, you probably, because they're looking like the top dog, looking real great there, but behind the back scenes, they're really doing these evil things. And it leads me to my first question for you, though, is that how do people identify that? Is there something they should be looking for, like any kind of weird thing that they should notice that they could probably start picking up on?
There's a lot of people that will say different things, right? And the unfortunate part, in my opinion, is that the same things that are red flags are also green flags. They build trust with you,
Yeah.
and so you want to trust people. But if there is a red flag and you have kind of like I don't know if that was right,
Yeah.
trust your gut. Set some boundaries. See how they react to those boundaries. Um, and because most of the time, if you hear a survivor story, you're going to go back and go, why did you do this? Why did you do this? Why did you do
Yeah.
this? And what you're not understanding is and I'm going to use the pronoun he, because most offenders, even if the victim is male, is a male.
Yeah.
So how did he get your trust? how did he manipulate you into doing those things? It's not like a one and, like automatic, we get to this level. There is typically, and from working with perpetrators, there's a level of grooming, and that grooming can take a couple of hours. It can be that, like, I am talking to a guy at a bar, I'm actually having a really great conversation, and he slips something in my drink.
Yeah.
And yes, I can cover my drink, and we all have learned how to cover my drink, but I don't want to think about sexual assault when I'm out having fun and drinking. And I don't want
Yeah.
to be the person that has the thing covered. And even if I do, there are ways to get around that where you think that you're being safe. So you actually let your guard down in a different way. And I don't think it's bad to let your guard down, because all of the things that we've been taught about how to protect ourselves from sexual assault is, don't get too drunk, use the buddy system when you walk home. Don't put your earbuds in when you're walking home, all these different things. And that is not going to prevent sexual assault. That's going to reduce your risk at best. The perpetrator is going to offend who they want to offend.
Yeah.
If they want to assault you, they're going to. One of the other things I say often is that if I am drunk at a party 100 times and nothing happens to me, but one of the times I am drunk at a party, I am sexually assaulted, the problem isn't my drinking. The problem is that one time I was with somebody who wanted and succeeded at assaulting me.
Yeah.
That's it. It is not the alcohol's fault. And I think that we've been conditioned to that. And so all of these lists, what happens is they become these victim blaming things of the first thing. Then we're all conditioned to do, well, what were you wearing? What did you do?
That's funny
How
that
did
you
this
said it. What
happen?
were you wearing? It's like, it's like, what do you want me dressed like a complete nun is, the thing people would say, but it's like, why does it matter? Like, actually, Tracy, this will be an interesting conversation. My daughter and I had to have a conversation. She's 15. Before she went to move with her mom, I was trying to explain to her, I'm like, listen, sweetie, you got to understand, boys don't use common sense, is what I told her. Because she's like, well, why can't I dress like the way I want to dress? Because boys can't behave themselves at that age. We don't know how to act right. And the stats don't lie. It is mostly men that are the ones that are doing these things. And she's like, well, why can't I wear like these, spaghetti tops or things? I'm like, well, because the school doesn't want that, because boys don't know how to act right. And it's like, you have to tell these little girls, like, hey, listen, boys don't know how to act right. But it's like, it shouldn't be like that, though. We should be teaching our
Right.
young gentlemen how to be better than that.
Exactly. Anytime somebody says, well, what conversation should I have with my daughters about this? I say,
Yes.
what conversations are you having with your sons? Because
That's a
who
good
are you
question.
protecting your daughters from? There's also times where, people are saying not all men. And I agree with that. I have amazing men in my life, and it is not all men, but it's enough of them. And I've talked with dads before, and they're like, but there was this one gentleman in particular, and he and I had a really great conversation. And he's like, but it's not all men, Tracy. And I said, I know that. I said, but you've got a 13-year-old daughter. I said, tell me what your thoughts are immediately when you think about her dating. And he goes, oh, I'd never want her to date until she's 30. And I said, why? And he goes, because I know what men think. I said, all men? Do you know what all men think? And he paused and he's like, you got me. I said, we
That's a
are
good question,
taught
though.
from a very young age to fear men, that we are not allowed to wear spaghetti straps because men are problematic and boys are problematic. And then we get to be adults and we're assaulted. And then they're like, well, you did something wrong.
Yeah.
And we're
Yeah.
teaching boys that they don't have accountability, when we need to teach boys. What we need to do is teach our daughters to say, go ahead and wear it. And I want you to know how to say no. And I want you to know how to be like, what do you respond when somebody says this to you, when some adult man says this to you? Because I want you to be prepared in how to stand up for yourself, and how to be comfortable making a scene, and how to be comfortable calling out that pervert.
Hmm.
Um, and it shouldn't be their responsibility, because what we also need to do is teach other men to call out that behavior, to call out that. I know that every man has experienced some friend of theirs saying something rude, inappropriate to a young girl, to a woman at a bar. And how many of those same men have called that out, and why not? And if you didn't call it out,
Oh, I
how do
called
you
it out.
expect a woman to report it or call it out or whatever when they're unsafe and they're triggered and they freeze?
Yeah. Yeah, I work with actually mostly females anyways too. And I'm known as the person that they're watching the camera. One incident we had, one girl was watching the camera and I came onto the camera. My boss stops the camera and she goes, "Why'd you stop?" He said, "Because you see that guy right there? Because the minute something happens, I guarantee he's gonna say something. Anything weird, any of that sort, and the situation I'd be, the young lady said some guy tried to follow her in the bathroom and she goes, well, I don't have to worry about anything because the minute he walks in, there's no problem because he's going to say something. And I'm already known as the person who'll say something. I don't care. I'll shout it
Right.
across the room. I tell my girls that work with me, I said, listen, if somebody's making you feel uncomfortable, let me know. I'll come over and tell them, listen, you have two choices: finish the purchase or get the fuck out right now because I'm not going to let you bother these girls. They're here working. This is a safe space for them and it'll be continue to be a safe space for them. I don't allow it. And I tell them all, they all laugh at me and I'm like, all right. I'm just letting you know if something gets sticky or somebody starts making you feel weird or somebody's following you on the store, I'm watching what they're doing. Like, don't get me wrong, I am watching. I'm watching for you to let me know if something's being said because I can't be there all the time, but I could see where you're at around the room. And I'll look and watch for any weird things, any guys
Mhm.
like falling around, things like that too. And I'll walk up to them, hey, listen, there's something I can help you with. I literally had to tell one grown man, I said, I need you to go sit down over here and wait a minute. It was a person doing like one of those delivery services. I said, I'm going to give you two choices. You can go sit out in your car or you can sit here and leave her alone because you don't need to be following her on the store. I don't like you doing that. And I'm going to let you know this is the only time I'm telling you because if you come back in here again, I'm going to have you asked to leave again. And and it's just not going to be tolerated because
Right.
like I said, I have girls of my own. And I think that's a great point of the conversation is what are we teaching these boys? Like, we see all these things all these times, and these guys like degrading women and things like that, saying these horrible things to them, thinking it's okay to say these things because it's like the Andrew Tates of the world are putting all that on social media. But where are the guys out there that are saying things like, I've found a lot of them now. Like there's these big muscle bound guy. What's his name? Iron Sanctuary. This dude is like massive. And he's on there talking about, how to be better. Him and another guy, what's his name? Big Swole Texan or somebody. Dude is massive. But he's coming on there having real conversations with people about things, and it's sad that we have to have a talk with them about how to act. But at the same time, it's like we need to take responsibility because we as fathers need to start teaching our boys how to be better men and stop allowing these kind of things to happen, and the flip side, like you said, for the girls, it's like we shouldn't have them be so scared of boys that
Mhm.
they can't go out and be themselves and express themselves because some boy's going to come up and say something wild to them or tell them, oh,
Mhm.
this and then get blamed. Like they're the victim. Like, oh, what did you do to cause this problem?
Yeah.
What do you mean? What did I do to do this problem? It's like, come on now.
Yeah. Years ago, I used to talk to college athletes about this, both men and women. Mainly, it was about getting men involved. So we really talked with a lot of men. And I had this big, burly football player come up to
Yeah.
me, like D1 school, and say, I got a question for you. You say that we can't say anything about their Instagram choices, but what do they expect when they're like wearing like a bikini on their Instagram? What do they expect men to do? And I said, have you ever been to a beach? And he's like, yeah, of course. I said, have you seen women in bikinis there? Yeah. Did you find them sexually attractive? Yeah, of course. I said, did you rape them? And he goes, no. Why? What? And I'm like, of course. I didn't think that you did. Why didn't you? Well, because I wouldn't do that thing. Then you've just answered your own question. It's not about wearing the bikini. It's about you being willing to rape somebody. And if
Yeah.
you can not rape somebody seeing them in a bikini, then anybody should be able to walk down the street naked. And the only thing that should happen is somebody should try to find a blanket and cover them up.
Yeah.
Like, it is your decision to rape somebody. That's it. And you can justify that. Perpetrators justify it all the time. And they are able to justify it so easily because so few of them experience accountability. And the
Exactly.
culture at large says that it's okay. And this is like, it's gotten slightly better. Like, if you think about movies back in the day,
Mm-hmm.
you look at any Harrison Ford movie and Star Wars and um, men in particular get really mad when I use this example. But the first kiss with Princess Leia, he's got her backed up on a wall and she has said no 8 or 9 times, but then it was romance.
Yeah.
And that's what men were taught that was romance. And that's what women were taught was romance. And it's gotten a little bit better since then, but our media needs to change. The words
Yeah.
need to change, like it's
You're
not
right.
a underage woman, it's a child. It's not taking advantage of somebody. It's grooming them to rape them. Like, we have all this coded language that is just commonplace, that we really need to analyze and think about how this is protecting perpetrators and impacting survivors.
Media wise, there's a few that come to mind. Movie wise, there's one called Q. It had the girl from what's it, 10 Things I Hate About You. I can't think of her name on top of my head. She
Mhm.
was in that one, and the guy was the athlete, and he was accused of raping her. There's other films. There's a real graphic one. What is it? The one I Spit on Your Grave. Like, I don't know who the hell decided this was a great idea to make this movie, but it was the first 20 minutes. That movie is so jawing. It's like if you make it through that 20 minutes, like you're not the same, because it's just like it's so messed up. You're like, what the hell am I watching? Why are we making this kind of media and putting this kind of crap out there? I mean, there are some crazy movies out there I've seen, because I did a podcast before this where I was watching some of those, just like because you were telling me about it, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna and then there's something, so I'm just like, why do you guys like to share this crap with people? Like, this is disgusting. This kind of stuff is giving the wrong message to people. People are watching this and going, oh, it's okay. Or was it Megan is Missing was the other one that people were saying they were showing their daughters about, online predators and things like that. Like, you watch the prime example of being groomed. Like he's always telling her, oh, you're so pretty, this and that, da, da, da. And Megan's buying into this crap because she's, having so many problems at home and things like that. And then meets up with a guy with no camera on, and it's like, you don't know what this individual looks like. And then it leads you to, it's like, you don't know these people online. You don't know what their
Right.
intentions are. And if everybody's like, oh, all the parents are showing their kids this movie. I'm like, why? What message are you showing them with this movie? It's like, this is just like the craziest thing I've ever seen. Like, what are you talking? Oh, the last 15 minutes are so bad. I'm like, but why would you show that to them? They don't need to see that. I think they're smart enough adults to know what the heck the outcome of what could happen. Like, like this poor girl went into captivity. Like, you don't see it all, but you see enough to know what's going on. It's like, why would you show this to a young kid? You're
Mhm.
going to mess them up completely showing them this movie. Like,
Well, and again, that those are some of the extremes
yeah.
too. There was years ago, and I'm from a really small town
Okay.
originally, and on Facebook there were these comments. It was prom, and there were some of the girls in high school that had midriffs, like their midriff, like
Yeah.
crop tops, and like their midriffs were showing. And it
Yeah.
was like, these girls shouldn't be wearing midriffs. And it was like the same people I went to high school with that also wore midriffs back in the day, because that's what teenagers do. And I kept saying, I'm like, who are you protecting these girls from? What are you having with the boys that are going to prom? Because if all of your boys are the best boys ever, then these girls shouldn't have to worry about it.
Exactly.
So again, it always goes back to what are the realistic versions of this? And
Yeah.
so now, if one of those girls would have been assaulted at prom, it's her fault. It's already been primed
Yeah.
to be her fault because everybody's judged her. And the first thing she's going to think is, I didn't want to have sex, but it's my fault because look at all these comments from these adults that were blaming me for what I was wearing. And so I'm never going to say anything.
Yeah. That's scary. It
That's
is. It
how we
really
groom.
is.
That's exactly how we groom. Not only the perpetrator grooms, but because the perpetrator then has in his mind, I'm not doing anything wrong. She's asking for it. Look, all the comments said
Yeah.
that she was asking
Yeah.
for it, so it's her fault. Because of course, this is what I was going to do.
Yeah. It's sad. It's straight that exact statement. She asked for it. No, she didn't. Did she verbally tell you that's what she wanted, or are you
Right?
just assuming that's what she wanted? Look, let's cut the crap here, fellas. Like, let's stop
Exactly.
using that as an excuse. Let's stop saying, "Oh, well, she asked for it," or "She's been wanting it." What tells you that she wants it? Did she tell you these things? No, then she didn't ask you for it. You in your head have got this story and this narrative made up that you feel that, oh, she's looking the way she's dressed and she's just asking for trouble. Why? She's just having a good time, doing her own thing with her friends or whatever she's doing. If it's not
Yeah.
affecting you, then she's not asking you. She's not engaging you. She's not asking you for shit. She don't want anything to do
Right.
with you, obviously, if she hasn't engaged you. But we get these guys get in their heads that they think it's okay, and it's just like no means no, fellas. I don't know which way to tell you. When a girl tells you no, it
And
means no.
no means no, but also, I don't think so. Also means
Exactly.
no, and
Exactly.
silence means no, and ha 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 means no, unless you get like a yes, I want to fuck your brains out right now.
Exactly.
It's no.
Exactly. Unless
Protect
you get a,
yourself.
yeah, you know what
Protect
I'm saying?
yourself.
It's like, and then they're like, oh, well, I didn't do nothing wrong. Oh, now I'm getting in trouble for these things. Yeah, because you didn't. She didn't say yes, dude. Like, you
Mhm.
just can't do that. Like, if they don't tell you yes, then don't do anything. Don't do anything that you're gonna get yourself into. Like, use better logic these days. Stop being such a dumbass and going, oh well, she's asking for it, or she said okay. No, she didn't say yes. If she didn't give you a firm yes, I'd like to engage with you further. then that means no. So take it as a no every single time. Like, and
Mhm.
like I said, this is a call to all fathers to do better by your boys. Teach these young gentlemen that unless it is a complete consensual between the both of you, it is considered rape regardless. I don't care what you look at it as. It's just disgusting. If she's not into it and you're into it, it doesn't mean it's okay. And it goes the same
Yeah.
thing with anything, even people married couples, it's the same thing. If they're both not into the same, it's not okay.
Yeah.
It's not, oh, no, no, no. Oh, well, I'm feeding my needs. All this other bullshit you can come up with. It just makes me fucking sick. I just can't stand it when people say that shit. It's like, if she is not fully engaging with you, and it goes for your marriage couples too, that, just because you're married doesn't mean she owes you shit
Right.
on the other side of the thing. And I think it's sick. I think it's disgusting that women have to deal with this kind of shit. And it aggravates me. And I have the same principles. I tell my wife, like, if we're not both feeling the situation, we're not doing it. You don't give me shit if you're not,
Mhm.
if this is not something you want. I told that before, honestly. I told, listen, I don't ever want to have any kind of engagement with you like that unless you are absolutely 100% it's what you want to do. Because don't you ever say yes to me because I'm going to be upset, because I don't want to feel like that, because I feel like, this is a two-way road. If we're both not agreeing that this is the way we're going, don't don't do it. You don't have to do
Yep.
shit for me. I'm just gonna have to accept no. Like, listen, I'm not in the mood or whatever. And you're that's it, done. End of conversation. Don't guilt these women and tell them, oh well, yeah, man, I gotta leave
Yeah.
some tension. All that other dumb shit you
Yeah.
fucking say. I can't stand that shit. It drives me absolutely nuts. It's like you guys just need to get slapped sometimes to learn. Like, listen, guys, stop. Stop doing these things, because then you're going to make them think that this is what they're going to just have to deal with every time. And it's like, and then stop listening to Andrew Tate, all these other idiots out here that tell you to disrespect these women. This is your wife,
Mhm.
your partner, or whatever, or your better half. It doesn't matter. You're gay, straight, whatever the hell you are. You respect your partner. When they say no, it means fucking no. Don't continue to engage it further you
Yep.
know and I'll fight for everybody for that sake, because I don't agree with that shit. I think it's fucking sick. I think it's disgusting. And as a man, I think it just makes you less of a man. It makes you all the other words we could just go on that we don't even have to say, that we already know it is. You're a monster, evil, all those kind of things. It's just disgusting, guys. Let's cut out this bullshit. Let's stop making excuses and start using better common sense.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I think that there's probably some of your listeners that are like, "Well, what about false reporting?" Right?
Hmm.
Because that is a question that we get all the time, and I've gotten it forever. False reports are actually really low. Depending on the study, it's about 2 to 8%.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen often at all. But especially in college campuses, a lot of people are like, "Well, I'm worried about my sons getting falsely accused. I'm worried about me getting falsely accused. There's so many women falsely accusing." Men are more likely to be sexually assaulted in college than they are to be falsely accused. So unless you're talking about prevention of sexual assault of men, then you should not be talking about false accusations, because your
Yeah.
priorities are wrong. And the first thing that any perpetrator that I've ever worked with, and you can look at the history of the Me Too movement and any celebrity who's been accused, the first thing that they do is deny it. So just because somebody denies it doesn't mean that it didn't happen.
Exactly.
And so typically there's this thing called darvo that's been in the research for a long time of how does a perpetrator respond when being accused. They deny, D.
Hmm.
They oh, what's the A?
Is it accused?
um Accuse, and then they reverse victim and offender.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, and so like it's this pattern that they do, but also the people who false report also have a pattern. They typically have a mental illness. There's typically somebody else that's telling them to report, so it's like a teenage daughter
Yeah.
that their family is telling them to report. There's like 4 different profiles for false accusations that are pretty common, and most accusations don't fit that because, again, look at the comment section and see what kind of fame
God.
people get for being
The
sexually assaulted.
comment section, God, we need to stop reading the comment section, because if you go through some of these videos, guys, and read these comments, like there's people posting videos about losing weight, and people are telling them, "Oh, what are you excited about? The fact they're losing weight, you idiots! It doesn't matter. Like, what the hell is wrong with you guys?"
Mhm.
And I can't I can't with these people, Trace. I really can't with these guys. Like, I can't advocate for all these men enough that you need to stop being idiots. So let me ask you a couple questions really quick though. What are some myths about sexual assault? Like what are the things you hear people misconceptualize about it a lot of times, and they think
Mhm.
it's right, that we can just tell them right now? Listen, hey, these are not the right thought process.
So I think I covered one already, and that is that people know their perpetrator. So people think that it's a stranger when it's
Yeah.
not. The truth is that people know their perpetrator. I think that a lot of people, both victims, survivors, and perpetrators, think that the person has to fight, that they're going to fight if they've been sexually assaulted. And most people freeze, particularly women. And up until like the early 2000s, we didn't talk about the freeze response to trauma. And so that is actually way more common. And so most people are not going to fight. And so I think that that is also a misconception. I think there's a misconception that you can really prevent it from happening. Because again, the only person that can prevent it from happening is the perpetrator. So, and false reporting, that false reporting is widely known. And then I think, like, again, I think we've covered a lot of these, that
Yeah.
reporting is easy and that everybody should report. I know numerous people who had video evidence and text admission, and the DAs would not prosecute. Video evidence of a man drugging a woman, and they would not prosecute.
That's sad.
And that survivors are, if it's I've heard that if it's a real sexual assault, that survivors would come forward immediately. That is not the case. That is absolutely not the case.
That's disgusting. That just irks me even more, that the fact there's video evidence, text message, all these things that are showing you these things happening. It's like, what more evidence do you need to see? It's clear as day right there what's happening, and you
Yeah.
still don't do anything about this problem. It's just
And I will say one more is that often a lot of survivors, after they've been assaulted, will go and have sex with that person again. And often that's consensual. And it's a typical trauma response, because you're trying to make sense of what happened in your brain, and you're
Yeah.
trying to make sure that I don't want to be a victim. I did not want this to happen. I need to somehow regain control. And so if I have sex with them, I'm going to regain control, and I'm going to be able to minimize what happened to me. When
Yeah.
really, then later you're like, actually, that was just a response. And so what happens in court and what happens with other people is, well, how could he have raped you? And then you said it was okay. That
Yeah.
is a really, really common thing to happen. And I will tell you one other misconception, and this is about men, is that an erection is not consent. Period. So a lot of times when men are being sexually assaulted, again, either by women or by men, that they have an erection and they think,
Yeah.
well, then I've consented to it, or my body responded. That is a physiological response. That is
Yeah.
not a consent response. And that doesn't mean that you've consented.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's just, it's sad that we have to make those points to people, especially that one too. It's like, it's the same situation either way you're looking at it. If they don't say yes, it's still considered rape. Like, I don't know how many times we have to tell you that, Tracy. I can't repeat it to you 1,000 times. But anyways, Tracy, let me ask you a question though. For people that have gone through sexual assault, the friends, the family members, anybody that's trying to comfort them, help them, what are some advice you give them
Mm.
to better be a better person to help them and not make the situation worse?
Oh, this is such a great question. Thank you for asking. The first thing to do is sit and say, are you okay? What do you need? It is, oh my goodness, how did you do this? What can we do? Go call the police. Let's go get him. I'm going to kill him. Any of that. As the person hearing the disclosure, you sit with it and you deal with your feelings about it later, particularly if you're a parent, particularly if you're a dad, because we don't tell a lot of dads. Women don't tell dads because they're afraid that they're like, the dad's immediate response is, I'm going to go kill him. Well, now I'm dealing with my own trauma, being assaulted. And now I have to tell you that I'm okay, to calm you down too. The person who's been assaulted should not have to be the one to calm the other people down. And so if you are the one being told that one of your loved ones has been assaulted, remember that. Let them breathe. Let them lead the way. There is no, this healing is not linear. It is a crazy, chaotic spiral mess. And that the survivor gets to do what's right for them. Reporting is not the best option for any survivor. It's sitting with them. It's letting them heal as they need to. And it is a responsibility of the survivor to heal, for sure. You cannot control what happened to you, but you do need to control how you respond to it, and by getting help to help you control that. But it's really about saying, I believe you.
Yeah.
I believe you. I Like, this is awful. What do you need? And that changes the overall healing of somebody. It changes whether or not and how severe PTSD or PTSI can form. It changes how much they trust and believe themselves in the future. And it can completely change the trajectory of their lives, of their physical health, of their mental health, of all of it based on what the response was when they first told.
I love it. I love it. I do have a follow-up question though. For someone that gets into a relationship with someone who's been through a sexual assault, do you have any tips for those guys? Like those how, like,
Mm,
hey, listen, these are some things to be careful of, things that you may run into, just things they should expect and things that how they
yeah.
should react versus reacting the wrong way.
Um, Talk about it. So in heterosexual relationships, 1 in 2 women have experienced some kind of sexual violence by the time they're adults.
Yeah.
Depending on the study you look at, it's about 1 in 2 women. Um, so assume that your partner, if your partner's a woman, has experienced something, and it's about being able to talk about it, being able to say, are you okay with this? Is there anything I should know? And know that you probably don't have the trust built the first time or the
Yeah.
second time or the 15th time. And it's an ongoing conversation. It's not just one. But if that person doesn't want to talk about it, also don't push. And just to say, if and when something happened, let's chat about it.
Yeah.
I'm here, and so it's being understanding. And if that person is open and to say, I've been assaulted and I have trauma, I need to build trust. Ask them, what does that look like for you?
Yeah. That's a
Building
great
trust
question.
looks building trust looks different for every person. Is it going slow? Is it, you know, lights on, lights off? Like, is it like talking? Is it not talking? Like, you have to know what their assault was. And every person that has been a victim or a survivor is going to respond differently. So don't treat them
Yeah.
all the same, because what pisses off one survivor is going to be really empowering to another survivor. And so it's really about communication. And, we could have a whole another hour conversation about sex education and about consent and about
Yeah.
positive, like how positive sexuality, and sex positivity is a prevention for sexual assault, because we really need to learn how to talk about sex with our clothes on
Yeah.
before we can talk about sex with our clothes off. And we don't do that because there's so much shame around sex. And
Yes.
so
Yes.
again, I think it's an excellent question. I think there are a couple of books that I can give you the links to. I can't think of
Yes,
right
definitely.
now.
Because I'll put them in the bio if you
Yeah.
send them to me. And then when we do the audio side, which this audio could be coming out Friday for anybody listening, that this has already been done. I'm gonna put the audio Friday though, but I will include it in my audio clip
Yeah.
as well for you too. That way they're all in there. And then the Netflix thing I'm putting in there as well. I'm gonna put all that,
Yes.
I'm gonna put all that great stuff in there inside the comment section, all inside the little video description. Everybody can see and where to go and see these things. Because I think everything that you're talking about is great. I think this conversation was needed to be had. I really do. And I feel like, being a male, being in this conversation makes it even stronger, because I don't agree with a lot of things that are going on. And I feel like more males need to be a part of this conversation, stop being scared to come in and understand what is happening here, that we are mostly the problem a lot of times, that we need to fix our way that we're doing these things. Like all these little guys keep seeing all this stuff on social media. Stop posting this crap, all this other stupid shit and things like that. Just stop, guys. Let's change the narrative of this thing. Let's make the number go down of victims, because we don't realize you're like, oh, hey, I had a good time, but it's like, okay, but what did you just do to that poor woman? You traumatized that poor girl for the rest of her life. It's like,
Mhm.
come on, man. You feel good about that? What if that person goes on and ends up taking their own life? Then you have to live with that guilt of what happened. It's like, don't put yourself in that situation ever. Like, if you could learn anything from this episode alone, it's just like use better decision, teach these boys better. Tracy's not here just because, she wants to be here. It's because this is something that needs to be handled. She spent 25 years dealing with this stuff, and now it's the time to stop. Like, she and I both want the same thing. We want that number to go down, man. This is crazy.
My
Thank you.
ultimate goal is to work myself out of a job. Not many people have that as a career goal, but my career goal is to work myself out of a job.
Right. Right. And it's just like, oh God, it's so sad that we have to have these conversations. But they're so uncomfortable though in the same time, because it's just like, these people have to relive this trauma, and a lot of people don't understand like how to address it either. Like they're all quick to go, oh well, I'm gonna go get that person. Like you said, you point out the fact they're always quick to react versus asking, hey, are you okay? Like, I think that's where we should start leading with this. Hey, are you okay? Let's worry about how they're doing first versus start reacting and getting. I mean, you can get as pissed as you want, but don't get mad at them for something they had no control over. And stop blaming people for shit. Like, come on, guys. Oh, she wanted all that. Listen, I can't say it enough times. Cut the bullshit. Tracy, thank you so
Well
much for
said.
coming today. I appreciate it. If anybody wants to find you, where can they reach you? I mean, obviously you have the website. Is there any other way that
Yep.
you prefer?
Yeah. Projectcallisto.org is our website. You can find us at Callisto on Instagram. You can connect with me on LinkedIn or connect with Callisto on LinkedIn. And those are the best places to find us. And if you have a .edu email address and you're wanting to create an account, you can navigate through the website, or you can go directly to callistovault.org to create an account.
Definitely, guys. I say go for it. If you want to make a change, there's a way to be ambassadors on there. There's a way to do everything, guys. There's a way to prevent these things from happening and start making people being held accountable for these kind of things. And it takes one of you at a time to do it. I know it's hard, but you're not alone. Tracy and I are here with you. We both support everything you're doing. For those that have come forward and said your story, congratulations. I know it's hard. For you that haven't yet, listen, you'll get there. When you get there, you have the support of me and Tracy for sure, and everybody on her team and everybody on my side as well, man. This is just like, we got to stop this shit. We got to stop this foolishness. We got to end this problem. We got to break the stigma. This is okay to do, guys. You know what I'm saying? But I'm Pete for Anxiety. I just want to say that to all the fellas out there, we got to do better. Like, come on. Like, I can't be the only one here, and the rest of us out there. We need to start putting more positive messages out there to these men, that we need to treat these ladies with respect, because at the end of the day, that's somebody's mother, or there's somebody else, or whatever, somebody's daughter, or whatever, however you want to look at it. It's ridiculous, guys. We shouldn't have to be dealing with these statistics this high of numbers, because we all don't want to make smarter decisions. So, Tracy, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. I do appreciate spending time with us today. I enjoyed having this conversation. I think it's a well-needed conversation. So, and I wanted to thank you again for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
All right, guys, and as I end this episode of Pete for Anxiety, you guys know where to find me on Pete for Anxiety on X, all the way down to TikTok. I'm on Spotify, all down to iHeartRadio. As I always say, it costs nothing, absolutely, to be kind to somebody. One kind act you could do is save somebody's life, or hell, you can make their day. I'm Pete for Anxiety, signing off saying, don't ask how your day is today. Say, hey, how's your mental health today?